Okay, now we are going to hear from the Korean side. We have these three gentlemen sitting here at the stage. The first Korean speaker of today is Mr. Hyunseok Shim from DAPA, Defense Acquisition Program Administration. Mr. Shim is the Deputy Director of Technology Policy Division at DAPA, who's in charge of the International R&D Collaboration Scheme. 발표 부탁드리겠습니다.
Good morning to my friends in the Netherlands and good afternoon to friends in Korea. I'm Hyunseok Shim from the Technology Policy Division at DAPA. I'll now start my presentation on defense R&D policies of the Republic of Korea. I'll first make a brief introduction of what DAPA as an organization is, and then I'll provide an overview of our defense R&D budget for 2020, and then I'll talk about the main contents of the 2019 to 2033 defense R&D policy paper. DAPA was established in January 2006 under the principle of transparency, efficiency, and professionalism. It brought together acquisition organizations from 8 different military organizations as seen in the slide. With the launch of DAPA, defense acquisition that used to be carried out in a fragmented fashion in separate organizations were brought together. DAPA's main responsibilities are fivefold. The first is defense acquisition policymaking and execution. The second is force improvement program budgeting and execution. The third is defense industry promotion and international cooperation. The fourth is defense technology management and R&D planning. And the fifth is timely material acquisition. This is our organizational chart. DAPA is composed of 2 agencies, 3 general directorates, and 1 division. There are about 1,200 civilian employees and 470 uniformed military personnel currently serving in DAPA. The DAPA leadership is composed of the minister and the vice minister. The HQ is composed of 3 general directorates, 4 special offices, the spokesperson's office, and the general affairs division. And the HQ as a whole is in charge of general defense acquisition policies. We also have 2 program management agencies called the Current Capabilities and Advanced Capabilities that actually carry out force improvement programs. And there are 2 affiliated agencies, ADD and DTAQ, which stand for Agency for Defense Development and the Defense Agency for Technology and Quality, respectively. Now I'll go over the Korean defense acquisition process in general. Their services and defense agencies such as the Army, Air Force, Navy, and the Marine Corps raise requirements for weapon systems, and these are confirmed at the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The Minister of National Defense is responsible for midterm and yearly budgeting. The requirements are then converted to acquisition programs and they're sent to DAPA. DAPA carries out preliminary research, which spells out how we're going to acquire the systems, and then we establish individual acquisition strategies for each program, and this will be our make or buy decision. And then, according to the strategy, we execute our acquisition programs. Then, the Ministry of National Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff are responsible for testing and evaluation of the finished products, after which the acquired weapon systems are then sent to the services for field testing and the initial operating phase. And the services will use and maintain the systems until disposal. In the picture, DAPA is responsible for defense R&D, which can be roughly divided into weapon systems R&D and defense technology R&D, which I'll explain in further detail in the next slide. As I mentioned before, defense R&D can be broken down into weapon systems and tech R&D. The detailed process for each are shown in the slide. So for weapon systems, the services raise the requirement, and DAPA does the preliminary study. And if we identify areas that need further research, we go back to the tech R&D phase, and individual parts or technologies will be researched before we commence our weapon system R&D program. Now I will discuss how much money goes into defense R&D. This is the defense budget for 2020. The total defense budget is 15.15 trillion won, or about 38.6 billion euros. And this is divided into the force management budget and the force improvement budget. The force improvement budget is our name for our acquisition programs. The force improvement budget is about 12.8 billion euros, and of that budget, about 3 billion euros is allotted for defense R&D, which stands for about 7.8% of the total defense budget. And this proportion has been rising steadily over the years. Defense R&D budget can further be broken down into weapon systems R&D and defense technology R&D. The budget for defense technology R&D this year is about 840 million euros. Next, I will talk about the recently published 2019 to 2033 Defense R&D Policy Paper. This particular paper is published every 5 years by the Korean Ministry of National Defense and covers a period of 15 years. It is the highest level of document in the defense R&D sphere. The defense R&D policy vision is building a strong, smart force based on state-of-the-art science and technology. And under this, there are 2 policy goals. The first is building a state-of-the-art force to proactively react to security threats from all spheres. And this includes military threats, non-military threats, non-state actors, and even forces of nature. The second policy goal is developing defense science and technology to meet national, economic, and social needs. Under these overarching goals, there are six more specific strategies, and now I'll explain the contents of each. The first strategy is focus on core technology and parts R&D. And by core technology, I mean technologies that are highly complex, required for developing future weapon systems that need to be acquired to meet national security needs. To acquire such technologies, we plan to increase the percentage of technology R&D in defense budget from 6.9% in 2019 to over 10% by 2033. The KM&D and DAPA will also make intensive investment in 8 strategic defense technology areas, which I will explain further in the next slide. There will also be focus on domestic R&D of core parts. Through core parts research programs, we seek to increase the competitiveness of our defense industry while at the same time bringing down the life cycle costs of weapons systems. The second strategy is building an innovative defense R&D system. Until now, defense R&D in the Republic of Korea tended towards low-risk, low-return projects driven primarily by capability demands from the armed forces. This was in part because there was too much bureaucratic hurdles and heavy penalties against failed R&D projects. We're now trying to change that. We have introduced the Future Challenging Technology Program, which is a fast-track, technology push type R&D program, which allows for researching technologies that is not immediately related to a planned weapon system acquisition. So through this program, we're seeking to have technology be able to push demand. We're also expanding the scope of good faith failure, which means we'll place smaller penalties or even exempt them for researchers who carried out their work in good faith but have failed the programs because the goals were too ambitious. Through these fast-track programs and policy reforms, we're trying to bring openness and flexibility into defense R&D so that industry, academia, and non-defense government research institutions will have more incentive to participate in defense R&D. The third strategy is cooperation with international and civilian partners. Under the background of technological progress that makes R&D ever more complex and expensive, reaching out to international partners allows us opportunities to engage in international joint R&D, which can reduce cost and risk. And as I mentioned in the previous slides, we try to bring in R&D capabilities from outside the defense community. One hallmark of this move is to restructure ADD so that ADD can focus on technology development while weapon system R&D will be delegated more and more to the defense industry. Improving R&D also requires improving the planning and evaluation phases. While DAPA currently manages the second largest R&D budget among the Korean government ministries, DAPA still does not have a dedicated agency for planning, management, and evaluation of its S&T programs. In the coming years, we're going to address this situation by increasing professionalism, objectivity, and transparency in the process, including by establishing an agency dedicated to managing defense R&D programs. We will also try to provide better incentives for researchers to attract talent into defense R&D and promote a culture of healthy competition. The fifth strategy is increasing defense industry competitiveness through S&T. We hope to make defense S&T the engine of growth for the defense industry. We hope that the SMEs and venture capital will play an important role in bringing innovation to defense. To encourage their entry into the industry, we will lower the barrier through various support measures. Defense S&T is an area where private intellectual property rights are inevitably restricted by national security needs. We plan to strike a balance between protecting essential security interests with the needs of the industry by categorizing technology and making the defense technology protection system more streamlined and transparent. This issue will be explored further in the coming years. The sixth strategy is investing in human and material resources for defense R&D. We plan to increase the percentage of advanced degree holders in ADD's new recruits, and we will also try to improve upon the current workforce through continued training programs and exchange programs. More R&D projects will be channeled to the industry and the academia to engage their talent. We will make continued investment in upgrading facilities and equipment for defense R&D and also testing and evaluation. Also, to reduce redundant investment and ensure timely access to R&D and T&E infrastructure, we will build a system for sharing between defense and civilian sectors. This will include an online system where a database of defense R&D facilities and equipment will be uploaded. Next, I will explain the 8 defense R&D focus areas. As the capabilities required of our armed forces in order to effectively respond to the future threats, they are selected based upon development directions of defense science and technology in the fourth industrial revolution era. The first is the autonomous intelligent surveillance and reconnaissance. It aims to converge surveillance, reconnaissance, and information, and to advanced analytical techniques. It aims to collect information about omnidirectional threats at battlefields, leveraging unmanned autonomous sensors, and to detect and identify signs of provocations using AI and big data. Second, hyperconnected intelligent command and control. It aims to secure technology that digitize and automate the whole process of command and control systems so that the disposition of friend and foe can be shared in real time via hyperconnected networks, and an AI-based command decision is made on time. Third, high-speed, high-impact precision strike. It aims to maximize strict strike capabilities against major tactical targets of the enemy, utilizing high-speed, high-mobility, and high-energy weapons. Fourth, next-generation propulsion and stealth platforms. It aims to make propulsion systems of high performance to secure high mobility, turn land, sea, and air platforms into stealthy platforms, and to advance low probability of intercept capabilities. Fifth, manned-unmanned cooperation. It aims to secure network-based cooperation between manned and unmanned systems, integrate warfighting technology in order to improve the stability of operations, and to enable missions that go beyond what can be done by humans alone. Sixth, high-tech individual combatant equipment. It aims to systemize the individual combatants so that the armed forces can be ready for the reduction of the number of troops coming with the demographic change, and also to maximize individual warfighting capabilities. Seventh, cyber active defense and next-generation protection. The area aims to secure defense capabilities against cyber warfare, electronic combat, and missile and CBR threats by maximizing active reaction capabilities leveraging quantum science and AI. Last, future technology. This area aims at innovation of the concept of warfare by securing next-generation technology, promoting innovative development of weapon systems through independent development of future-oriented technology such as quantum physics, chemistry, biotechnology, and directed energy. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Shim.